Hello, everyone.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Riley. Good morning. Hi, Cassandra.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining. We had lots of people registered. Quite a few said they had something come up, but they wanted a recording. So that's why I'm going to record the webinar. And I really appreciate your time being here. Welcome to the webinar about the workforce trends that my amazing team led by Smila Fernandez uncovered, and of course, how this ties to some of the insights I wanted to share with you that relate to selecting, developing, and retaining great talent. First, I'd like to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. I'm not sure you guys, we've met before. My name is Tatiana St. Germain. I'm the founder and CEO of Great People Management. I'm an executive coach, assessment expert. I've been in the assessment industry for well over 20 years, and I've been a talent advisor to organizations, especially those who really care about people and they understand the value of people, the value of human capital, and they're looking for tools to optimize their people to achieve better results. I would encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn, whether you use your phone to scan the QR code or simply look up Tatiana St. Germain on LinkedIn. I believe I'm still the only one, the only Tatiana St. Germain on LinkedIn. So to start us off, I always like to level set and to explain my intent. Why did I put this information together along with my team, and why I wanted to share this information with you guys, with my audience? I wanted to bring to this webinar the top challenges that you are experiencing in your organization. So this is going to be part of the webinar where we interact a little bit, and that will come up in just a moment. I wanted to highlight top workforce trends that we see, and frankly, that I have been seeing for all the years that I've been in the business. But it's interesting to see how they shift and what becomes more important. Is it hiring? Is it turnover? Is it retention? Is it leadership development? So we will talk about some interesting statistics regarding leadership and employee development, as well as statistics related to hiring and turnover. And a good friend of mine who I see weekly at one of our mastermind meetings said, well, Tatiana, if you're going to be talking about workforce trends, surely going to need to mention AI. So we did have a couple of statistics, and I have some experience with AI, so we will touch on that. And finally, as we talk about some of these trends, I want to make sure that I spread the message that yes, you absolutely can effectively and consistently hire the best people, address your turnover issues, hiring issues, improve hiring process, impact your company culture, productivity, and organization's reputation. There are tools for tackling those challenges. So next, oops, my mouse is going crazy. It is your turn. So I shared with you why I am here, why I'm so passionate about people in the workplace, and why I bring this information to you. If you wouldn't mind unmuting yourselves and sharing what's your number one challenge with people in the workforce? Why are you here? What attracted you to our webinar? Please use the chat feature, and I will read as those come in, or you can unmute yourself, whatever you're comfortable with, because right now we're a fairly small group, so feel free to just speak up. Is it hiring? Is it retention issues? Is it attitude issues? Maybe it's bad leadership. Maybe it's something I heard on the radio this morning on the way to my morning meeting. Um, General manager of a hardware store hired two people, and the next day, one called in sick. The other one showed up, worked for an hour, and said it was too hard. So we are dealing with some of those issues. Okay, I have a chat that came in. Retention, job fit, and leadership development. Thank you, Mike. Well, incidentally, we will be talking about those issues. Cassandra, Riley, you want to chime in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Go.
guess I'm here today because we have a lot of retention issues, a ton of turnover. The company that I work for is like a federal contractor, so we just have a hard time finding candidates that fit the criteria that we're looking for. And then after we find them, retaining them season to season has been quite a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. I hear that from many leaders. Interestingly, it plagues organizations in all industries. Cassandra?
Yeah, so I'm with the Racine County Economic Development Corporation. So we aren't currently hiring and or facing any of the challenges. So I'm just here when I'm always interested on topics around talent, attraction and retention. And we just observe uh the trends that we're hearing from employers, just to gain a better understanding of the business climate in Racine County. So just interested to hear what everyone is facing, challenges, and some solutions that you are
Mm-hmm.
sharing as to offer.
Awesome. Great. I really appreciate you sharing. And I like my webinars to be fairly interactive. So I welcome you to ask questions. And if I'm kind of on a roll talking about something, just put that question in the chat or wait until I catch my breath. Um, okay. So we all just talked about how people are important for the business. Why, excuse me, why people are important? Because people are the foundation of your business. It truly doesn't matter what amazing product you have, what service you offer, how much investments your organization attracted. It doesn't matter because all of this is delivered, the product is made, the service is delivered by people. So people are truly the foundation of every business. It is interesting for me when I network with companies in different networking events and different associations. I encounter, for example, mergers and acquisitions specialists or exit strategists, succession planning experts who focus on the financial aspect of the organization. So they look at P&L, they look at company financials, and they value the business this way. And they often overlook the value of people. And so that there again, at those associations, I try to kind of deliver similar message that I'm sharing with you, that people are extremely important. And I'll show you the statistics as to why. They are the foundation of every business. You cannot have business without people. And you don't actually build a company. A company doesn't start with a product. It starts with an idea generated by a human. And then we want to bring humans into the workplace. We build them up. And then these are the people who build your company. So I really love that quote. Um, as we look at some of the major trends that occurred slowly over the last couple of decades, actually, uh, I find that they've been accelerated by COVID for sure. Deloitte in 2024, so a very recent survey, found Gen Zs and millennials. So I think it's 86% of Gen Zs and 89% of millennials say that a sense of purpose at work is very or somewhat important to their job satisfaction and well-being. So it's interesting to see how that shift started to occur from transactional relationship in the workplace where people used to have that more industrial kind of mentality. You exchange your time for money, you come to work to get paid. And then you find that sense of connectedness and fulfillment, not at work, but within your communities. This is how it used to be decades ago. Um, maybe because we didn't have
There
technology
you
to
go.
feel it to be as connected. Welcome who just joined. Or for whatever
Yeah,
other
yeah,
reason.
yeah. That's right. Oh, you got 40 pounds?
Armando, you or I'm gonna mute you, Armando. So as I was saying, people found fulfillment within their communities, their clubs, their church. So that's where the sense of connectedness came from. And now what we're seeing is employees care about interactions at work. This is where they come to seek a sense of purpose and fulfillment. So why is it important to talk about? Of course, it relates to retention. And one of you already said that hiring is a big enough challenge, but then how do you keep those people? So survey after survey, study after study, and this McKinsey study actually I picked it up, I think in 22 or 23. So a couple of years after the pandemic. And this is what it highlighted, that people want to be valued by the manager. They want to work with caring and trusting teammates. They want to be valued by the organization. They want to feel like what they do at work has a purpose. Unfortunately, with so many of our leaders being kind of old school, they may expect people to come to work and just do the work, show up on time and do the work. And employees come to work to find meaning and connection. So that's a massive mismatch of expectations that can lead to disengagement, that can lead us to losing people. It can also lead to toxic workplace cultures, and it can impact organizational reputation. So all of that to say is that there's so much more pressure now on leaders to create the environment where people feel motivated. Remember, motivation is internal. Why leaders are important? The role of a leader is not to motivate people. You cannot make anyone do or feel any certain way. Every one of us has a choice about how we feel and what we do. However, the role of the leaders to create that environment, I'm going to repeat again, where people feel self-motivated. Leaders are the ones who drive company culture. And that's what we're finding as far as trends go. There's so many, and I'll show you some additional statistics on the next slide too. 51% of organizations feel like their talent strategy is missing the mark for future workforce. And again, it's because of that mismatch of expectations. Leaders expect people to come to work to do the work, and people come to work expecting to have this wonderful culture. And HR leaders, 70% of them believe that current programs fail to prepare our leaders for future challenges. So the importance of leadership investment is highlighted here. Organizations with leadership development programs see a 25% reduction in turnover. I don't think it comes as a surprise to any of us. And higher profits, because when you have a culture where people feel motivated and engaged, they will produce better results. And it boosts learning by 25% as well. So these are some of the statistics we're seeing. And by the way, if you're interested in getting more information about any of the statistics that we mentioned, I would refer you to our blog, greatpeoplemanagement.com. And at the top, there's a tab for resources, and you can click blogs, and we have all of the clickable links that will take you directly to the sources that we used to collect that list of statistics in the blog. So not surprising, leadership development is essential for success of the organization. And what I find interesting in the last couple of decades is I've been in the business working with companies, helping them with the hiring process and leadership development. It kind of ebbed and flowed over the years. There were years when hiring was extremely important. And then there were years where investments in leadership picked up. So right now we're seeing a trend of investment, and I'd say probably in the last, since COVID, and especially in the last 2 years, leadership development bubbles up to the very top of what organizations invest in. And what is even more surprising, at least to me, professionally surprising, is that investments in hiring tools are going down. So we'll talk a little bit about that and the impact that hiring tools have on hiring and retention in a little bit. But I just wanted to wrap up this point about leadership development and why it's so essential for success of the organization. You've probably heard the phrase that people don't quit companies, they quit leadership. And there's so many talented leaders out there who just don't have the know-how, the skills, the feedback that they need to receive. That's critical to them for them to be more effective and more successful. In fact, I know many companies who shelter toxic leaders and they don't address the issues that these leaders have. We'll talk about this in a little bit as well. What if you have the opposite of toxic leaders? What if you have great leaders? Can you still have an unproductive workforce? And I know you all went off camera, so I don't see if you're nodding. It's semi-rhetorical question. It does happen. So how do great leaders hire bad people? How do bad hires happen? Well, hiring managers fool themselves into thinking they can change a person. If you've ever been in a relationship, you know that it's not likely. In the workplace, when you bring people together to work on a team, it's like building a relationship. 33, look at these statistics, 33% of employers who recruited a bad employee say they knew they didn't have all the right skills, but they thought they could learn quickly. Again, they will change. I can change them. I can coach them. It's especially true for leaders who have a strong desire to coach and mentor. They feel that they can change people and then they're quickly disappointed. Another thing that gets in the way of hiring a good person is when we are under time pressure and we need to hire quickly. And then we're just putting bodies into seats. 30% said that they wanted to fill the role quickly. How about those hiring managers who overlook candidates' attitudes and they simply look at the resume? And 69% of companies reported a flawed interview process as a contributing factor to making a bad hire. This is a whole entire rabbit hole that we can go down to when we talk about the effective and ineffective interviewing processes. So we're not quite going to go there. Perhaps it's a topic for another discussion. Bottom line is great organizations know that success begins with having the right people. It's just a matter of finding those elusive unicorns. Who are those right people? People are complicated. So when you meet somebody, especially when you meet someone online, as it often happens these days, interview them online or on the phone initially. How can you predict if they're going to work out? Your leaders are not mind readers. They cannot read tea leaves either. And too many candidates lie on their resumes. So if you're just using a resume and interview to make a hiring decision, just know that up to 72% of people admitted to lying on their resume. And what's interesting, I've been looking at these surveys over the years, and it really depends on how you word the question. Because there's another statistic from a few years back. I remember it's 80-something% admitted to, I think the wording was enhancing their skills on their resume. So it just depends. And of course, straight up lying, I've encountered that with my client organizations. I have some war stories to share, maybe another time. So what do people lie about on their resume? About their skills, about their abilities, about their experience, tenure in the previous job. And as far as interviews go, we don't really spend enough time with a person to truly understand what makes them tick. Interviews give you only 14% chance of hiring a top performer. Why? Because anyone can be anything for 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Plus, there is a huge personal bias involved. If you meet somebody and they tell you somewhere in the first 10 seconds or first 10 minutes of the interview that, I don't know, they like strawberries. So me too. So you start to like the person because you found something common with them, and then your personal biases are getting involved. Same goes the opposite effect. They say something you don't like, and then you're spending the rest of the 45-minute interview to sort of prove to yourself, rationalize to yourself why this is not the right candidate. And that is the main reason why the interview can only give you a 14% chance of hiring a top performer. What leaders need to combat all of that, the unreliable interviews and unreliable resumes, is data-driven tools to make better hiring decisions and other human decisions in the workplace. You need data-driven assessments. Pre-employment, why it's important. These are the statistics that tell us why pre-employment testing, pre-employment assessments are being used by best-in-class companies, and they really outpace traditional hiring methods by miles. 74% increase in hiring efficiency, 50% drop in hiring costs, up to 90% chance of hiring a good fit for the job. Keeping in mind, as I keep saying, bad hire, good hire, doesn't mean they're a bad person or a good person. We don't know that. What we're looking for is the fit with the job. So when I say good hire, it's somebody who fits the job. They could be a great person. They're just a misfit, miscast for the job. So when you use a pre-employment assessment, you will dramatically improve your statistical chance of hiring a top performer, or at least a good performer. And you're going, remember, from 14% chance. 57% reduction in workers' comp claims, 37% decrease in turnover. And over the years, I've done lots of return on investment studies and case studies of how assessments work. This number, 37% decrease in turnover, is pretty low, I would say. I just started recently working with a company that has over 200% turnover in 3 critical positions. In 6 months, they've already cut the turnover by almost half. And by end of the year, they will realize about $1 million in savings on turnover. So this is pretty dramatic. And another impact that it's having, you're streamlining your hiring process when you utilize assessments. And so the time on average from a requisition being put out there to hire goes from 27 days to 7 days. So you're reducing time to hire. Just another way to look at advantages of using pre-employment assessments and employee assessments. Whether you use them pre-employment or post-employment, it does help you make smarter, faster, and much better decisions about people in the workplace. It could be on the hiring side, but it could also be on promotional side. It could be when you're putting teams together, functional teams, project teams together from different departments. You want to help people understand each other and understand their strengths and weaknesses so that they can navigate their relationship a little bit, or a lot better, I should say. And when you have a bad hire, remember, it can drain productivity and morale, disengage other people on the team. So it's not just the cost of the hire. It's all those hidden costs of a bad hire and hidden costs of turnover. It impacts the rest of the team. And managers actually spend more time with people who don't fit the jobs, and they spend less time with their top performers, leading to top performers leaving. Remember when we looked at the statistics of what employees care about and why we lose people? Well, they want to have some face time with their manager. They want to feel that the organization is investing in them, helping them grow. And if they never get face time with their manager because their manager is busy with C players, your A players are going to leave. And then a quick note on AI. So this is an interesting time. I wouldn't say that we're seeing trends because it's too early to say, but we do have quite a few technologies out there that are publicly available, such as ChatGPT, that is going to impact what we value in terms of skills in the workplace and even in schools. I attended a conference last year, and it's Society of Industrial Organizational Psychologists. So there were lots of really smart people there. And there were about 100 sessions just on AI and its impact on talent management and organizations. And so there was a lot of conversation about how AI is going to impact what we view as a valuable skill. Think of writing. Again, going back to ChatGPT, if we can ask ChatGPT to write anything, including important emails and press releases, we're going to disqualify certain candidates based on them not meeting a minimum requirement, such as ability to communicate in writing. It's an interesting question to ponder, right? Same thing with math, or remember back in the day when Excel came on the market and when somebody created a program, and now all we need from people is not to be mathematical wizards, but to be able to plug in some numbers into a program and voila. So how we value skills is going to evolve. We're also going to be watching some regulation around what is called ADTs, automated decision-making tools. Those tools are typically related to bots that screen resumes, and you can see the problem with that right there. And many people realize that it's causing them to being disqualified from the hiring process because there's no human eyeballs that hit their resume. It's all AI. So regulation around those types of tools, or I think right now it's in New York and in California. They're looking at regulate EEOC and Department of Labor is looking at some regulation around that. I want to make a very important point that assessments and pre-employment assessments are not automated decision-making tools. They are designed for information purposes only. So when I started learning about AI in HR and other technologies, I was really curious about how it's going to trickle in or bleed into the assessment business. And assessments are not automatically disqualifying candidates. When you measure somebody, it gives you information about what their strengths and weaknesses, behavioral indicators are, how they learn, how they process information, and that will enable you to place them in the position that fits them best. It's still up to the hiring manager. But keep in mind that people, as you can see on this stat, 71% of people oppose the use of AI in especially in final hiring decisions, which is natural. And many people are still cautious and leery of that. So if there's anything like that comes up in some of your management meetings, just be mindful and at the same time be open, because these are tools that can greatly enhance and speed up the hiring process. But you want to make sure that you're not eliminating talented individuals. And once again, this is where assessments can be of help. And yes, there was a chat about providing this information. Yes, we have a blog. If you joined a little bit later, greatpeoplemanagement.com, we have a blog with clickable links that take you to all of these statistics. And feel free to email us afterward if you would like to learn more. We could probably put something together for you as well. It's a fascinating read. I actually have about 5 pages of this stuff here that Smila put together. It's incredible. I highlighted some of these things. It reads like a novel, and it's all just statistics. Anyway, so we talked about some of the workforce challenges, some of the main workforce trends relating to hiring, retention, and leadership development. So staying ahead, let's talk about solutions. Staying ahead of the competition, what we recommend, and I see success with organizations who implement employee assessments. If you integrate pre-employment assessment, testing, it will improve your hiring outcomes and reduce turnover, hands down. Absolutely. I've never seen it not work unless you're testing people to make them better. Again, mismatch of expectations. You can't change people. You want to use assessments in a purposeful manner, and you want to use them properly, just like any tool. Prioritize leadership development because, as I showed you, as the statistics tell us, best-in-class companies do that, and they are ahead of the curve. Building a robust program will equip your leaders with continuous learning and the skills that they need to succeed. We all have blind spots. And the culture of feedback, open and constructive feedback, drives continuous improvement. This is not lip service. This is not just a statement. It's a statement of fact. You want to encourage open, constructive feedback. This does require some managerial courage. And again, that culture of feedback is going to be driven from the top leadership. It doesn't come from the bottom. But that's what people, individual contributors, crave. So let's talk about some examples of what you can use to accomplish those goals to stay ahead of the curve and ahead of the competition. We already established that people are complicated. We in the assessment business like to refer to people as, or compare people to icebergs. When you encounter an iceberg, which Titanic did, by the way, you quickly learn that it's not the 10% that you see above the water level that sinks you. It's the 90% of what you don't see that tends to pop up later. During COVID, I remember there were all kinds of icebergs flipping upside down and in the workplace, and people were stressed out, and we were uncovering things that we didn't know where they came from. Leaders were falling apart pretty publicly and spectacularly. And that's because of that 90%. It shows up later when you're stressed and you're pressed up against the wall. Conversely, what can lie beneath the surface is also your potential, uncovered potential. And so many people stepped up during COVID and saved their companies and helped them thrive through and beyond that crisis. So we want to understand what is below the water surface. Don't you wish people came with user guides, or there was like a pop-up message like with these folks that would help us determine what makes them tick, how much better and quicker your decisions would be, precise your decisions would be, how much easier would it be to build relationships and have those open and honest communications at work. Well, it's difficult to discern which one of these wonderful people is a better fit for the position that you have open. So I like to look at the selection process, and you compare it to how you do, how you run your hiring process. But typically it's going to be sort of like this three-legged stool. We want to evaluate the past, the present, and the future. We already established earlier in the earlier slides that the past, the history, resume is highly augmented. People put or omit certain facts or provide false information on the resumes. And frankly, if somebody did something for another organization, doesn't mean that they're going to do well and do the same thing for you, for your organization. I was talking to a client who mentioned that he was kind of despairing about the fact that so many of the people that he didn't hire went to the competitor and they're doing so great. So he has this remorse about not hiring them. And I tried to put his mind at ease because I know from my experience working with thousands of companies, just because they're doing well at that company does not mean that they will do well for you. Every company, even in the same position, will have different expectations, different conditions, different culture. So it's not a very strong predictor of success. Then present, even if a person shows up on time to the interview, they brush their hair, they dress halfway decent, which all of these three are a commodity these days, it still doesn't mean that they're going to do a good job. The interview only gives you 14% chance of hiring a good performer. What you're trying to predict is the future, the job fit, and that's where assessment comes in. According to Harvard Business Review, the job matching approach, when you utilize highly sophisticated pre-employment assessment tools, will help accurately predict success on that job better than any other widely accepted factors such as education, experience, and job training. And of course, employees who are well matched to their jobs are going to be at least 2.5 times more productive on the job. Why? Because it's a win-win. You measure the person, you know who they are, you know the job, you put them together, the person feels like they're winning, and you're winning because you have a great A player in the position. Have you ever met anybody who was fully engaged in losing? Nobody wants to be losing. And when you put the person in the wrong position, they quickly find out that they're not cut out for this job. Okay? So, absolutely, it's a win-win. Assessments help you assess attitudes. So it will help you assess risk. Job fit will predict the success. And when you have great people in the right positions, you're building a culture of engagement. I'm going to speed up a little bit and maybe flip through a couple of slides. And if you have questions about those, in the interest of time, I'm just going to skim over those. But if you have questions later, please don't hesitate to ask. So back to the iceberg. Only about 10% of the person can be observed through day-to-day interactions. I even talked to folks who challenged me on this, and they said, well, I worked with this person for 6 years, side by side. And I'll say, you just wait. There will be a moment where that hidden 90% is going to show up because it's their potential. So it could be positive. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's their core behavioral tendencies, their motivations, talents, their challenges, their knee-jerk reactions. So all of that can potentially show. So how can we assess that 90%? There are a couple of assessment types. I'm sure you've heard of DISC, 4-quadrant personality assessment type. And if you are familiar with Myers-Briggs, you could just add a 5th bucket. It's based on Big Five model. So these are all, or predictive index, they're all in the category of personality assessments, personality tests. And they basically break people up into finite number of buckets or categories. And these assessments are usually quick, easy, fairly inexpensive, and are extremely useful when you're at least wanting to know kind of the ballpark of someone's style. However, and this is very important, these assessments are not designed and therefore not valid for use in pre-employment. They do not comply with the U.S. Department of Labor guidelines for use in hiring because they are very transparent, and they're limited. You're putting people in 4 buckets. How can, if they're in the blue bucket, how can you say that they're going to be a great salesperson, for example? However, post-employment, such as team development and communication, sales training, all kinds of things, it is extremely useful because you're still harnessing some of the unpredictability associated with people, and you're putting them in those buckets. So with DISC, you have 16 possible combinations. With Myers-Briggs, you have 32 possible combinations. And then when we delve into the normative assessment types, where they're much more sophisticated, they take longer to take their true psychometric tools that measure the total person across multiple attributes. They measure cognitive ability and behaviors, and the scores then are normed against working population to see how the person is relative to other people. This is what makes it useful and also less transparent as to what we're trying to measure to the assessment taker. So these assessment types, normative assessment types, are designed and valid for hiring. There's only a few of them on the market. So be very choosy as you're choosing an assessment. Those types of assessments, such as our flagship assessment, PXT Select, captures the uniqueness of each individual because with 20 traits on a scale from 1 to 10, just like that, this 1 to 10 scale, there's 20 measurements. The number of possible combinations is over 10 trillion. So that's why we're saying we're measuring somebody's occupational DNA. We're really trying to understand the uniqueness of the person and what they bring to the table. There's a whole document that we do have posted on our website. There is a document produced by the Department of Labor regarding good practices for assessment and testing in the workplace. So again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through it. Just mention that an assessment, once again, is information. This is not end all be all. This is only 1/3 of your decision according to the Department of Labor, but it gives you really good information that is reliable and compliant for use in pre-employment. And I'm going to skip through that. And please be cautious of time tests and mechanical aptitude tests because they do produce adverse impact on protected groups, and personality tests, as I mentioned, are fakeable. Case study for hiring a sales representative. Very quickly, how it's done, just a quick demonstration. If we use PXT Select, so let's say you come to me and you say, and I think it was Riley who mentioned that you have this position where it's difficult to hire people, and then once you hire them, it's difficult to keep them. So you're trying to understand what are some of those unique attributes that of your top performers. So if you can think of a couple of people who are in that position, they have been in this position, they've been successful, what is that secret sauce, the X factor that makes those people tick? You cannot really understand that by asking them or by looking at them. You have to measure them. So if we measure these 3 individuals with the PXT, it will actually give us the ranges. And in this case, this was a real study with sales reps, sell tires, actually. And what we found is that they are creative, they're strong-willed, they're quick on their feet. They're also skeptical. They don't believe the sale is done until there's a signature in the contract. So they ask a lot of questions. They're very vigilant. They're highly decisive. They're negotiators. They don't shy away from difficult conversations and making unpopular decisions. They're highly intuitive and they move pretty fast and solve problems very effectively. So now we have a tangible benchmark of success. Now we can match our candidates to it and see where is the fit. Is it going to be a good fit, a challenging fit, whatever it is? These 3 humans are still decent humans. Doesn't make them a bad person just because Camilla scored 67% match to this job. However, it's going to represent some challenges for Camilla. I am not going to eliminate these people or automatically decide, well, one of them is a better fit, so therefore I'm going to go ahead and extend the offer. I'm going to bring all of them to the interview because with PXT Select, you are getting interview questions so that you can understand the person a little bit better. You can dig into those challenge areas for the job fit. It tells you what to listen for. It tells you what are going to be some informative questions. They're situational, behaviorally tied questions. And what you're looking for is to understand or gauge the level of self-awareness of the candidate in the hiring process. Because if they're self-aware and they've already created some strategies to cope with those challenges that they know they have, well, then your coaching job is going to be that much easier. Okay. There's coaching reports, management tips. There's 13 different reports that come with PXT Select. So this is one of the assessments that I highly recommend that you look into, and we're happy to provide more information on it. Again, this is just a little teaser. Back to our list of what you have to do to stay ahead of the competition. Let's talk about leadership development. One of the reports on the PXT is a leadership report that helps us understand leaders' unique leadership DNA. We all have our unique style as a leader. We're going to measure them across these 6 leadership competencies, help you understand in what ways this style serves you and what ways it doesn't. So it's not just these competencies, there's a narrative associated with the report, and it will help you understand where you need to make some tweaks, what to look for, strengths and challenges, and more importantly, how you can achieve better results as a leader, be a more effective leader, but still be authentic to yourself. One of the main reasons why leadership development and coaching programs fail is because they're generic. So with this tool, you are able to help the leader connect the leadership training you just sent them to to who they are as a leader and as a person. And then that they can move forward kind of in a more authentic way. It really connects. That knowledge is going to live in their body. And that's when it's sustainable. Because nobody likes to feel that we're trying to change them. Another piece is perception. All leadership teams, individual leaders they don't know what they don't know. They don't often get feedback because there's so many other fires that they have to fight. But perception can make you or break you. I've met so many leaders who are like this apple. They look in the mirror and like, I'm freaking awesome. And the reality is when we administer 360 tools, it can be kind of a wake-up call. And so it's structured, constructive feedback that will provide leaders with some really good perspective. Leaders do need to make the time and create the space to work on themselves. And it's not just because it's lonely at the top, but also because it can be lonely on the way to the top. You don't know what you don't know until someone tells you. So our Checkpoint 360 feedback system measures or allows, okay, let me back up. It collects feedback from several groups in an anonymous and confidential manner. And we have a whole demo webinar that we'll be scheduling. I think there is a recording somewhere in our resources, so look for that. But I will be scheduling a demo of this as well in the coming months. So we will talk more in depth about what's involved in our 360. How to make, I already touched on this, how to make training and development stick. Growth mindset. It starts with hiring the right person. It starts with promoting the right person, or looking for high potential individuals and then developing them. That growth mindset can be developed. So either hire or promote, develop correctly people with growth mindset who are continuously growing. It needs to be personalized. Again, going back to assessments, individual assessments are so important. People need to know what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. Authentic and ongoing coaching and mentorship. Authentic to who? Oh, it's like, what does that say? And finally, another piece of the puzzle here is executive coaching. When organizations go through leadership training, leadership development process, assessment process, I often get this question, well, what now? How do I take this and execute on it on an ongoing basis? They need an accountability partner and they need a continuous kind of perspective provider, outside perspective. So as an executive coach, that's what I provide. And that's why leaders need coaches. We all live in our own heads and rationalize our actions and feelings. For example, if you make a decision, like I just came back from a 2-week cruise and we were at the jewelry store and I liked something there. And, once we made the decision that, okay, we will buy it, we both my husband and I spent 2 weeks talking about how it's a good investment. If we had made a decision not to buy, we would have spent the 2 weeks talking about how it's okay to pass on this opportunity. So we all rationalize our actions and we rationalize our feelings. Self-awareness is a critical piece that doesn't just happen. You can't just turn it on by measuring somebody. It's an ongoing process. You need to know what is working, what is not working. Accountability, authenticity, I keep harping on that, and growth. I'm quoting a very smart man. You're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. And of course, bring it full circle to my original quote here by Lolly Daskal. You don't build a company, you build people, and then your people will build your organization. So given those trends and statistics that we collected literally since December, so it's fairly new, these are the ways that we find best-in-class companies are staying, that's how they're staying ahead of the competition. when you gain insights into your people, you have the ability to start attracting people instead of losing people. And that's also a huge trend. We're not going after people anymore, quote unquote, recruiting, because recruiting doesn't seem to work, right? You post a job on Indeed and nothing happens. You need to create a culture that is like a talent magnet. And so it does start at some point with hiring the right people, developing people, and then the message gets out. You can't hide your company anymore, your company culture. So that reputation is going to travel far, far and wide. So if you have good reputation, you will find that you're attracting people instead of attracting top talent. One of the statistics that I wanted to bring up on this point, 70% of the global workforce consists of passive candidates. So these are people that are employed. How do you attract them? You know, they do not go on Indeed. They're not looking for jobs. Start retaining people by giving them what they're looking for, growth opportunities, sense of purpose, instead of just bribing them with more money or stay bonuses. Develop them instead of managing them, and start creating instead of fixing problems. I'm going to open this up to questions. Mila, do we have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat. Perhaps what are you taking away from this? What resonated with you? And you're welcome to come off mute. No questions? No comments? Okay. What are some of the more non-traditional work-related issues you're seeing as hindrance with retention? Non-traditional. I guess it would be helpful to define what are traditional issues that cause people to leave. And that would be relationships with coworkers and the boss.
Yeah, so I think more so towards like salary, morale, lack of culture in the agency, or dealing with issues with their boss or leadership.
Yeah. What we find, statistically speaking, is that it's not about the money. Yes, money is important, compensation is important, and there's been so much done and written about it. There's entire consulting companies out there who focus on pay equity. So you want to make sure that you are up to par, obviously, on the pay and benefits. Benefits are important. There's some interesting ideas for benefits. I took out this slide, I think. I did have a I don't know what just happened. I had a slide with retention ideas. I can't find it now. But like pet insurance, there's some other interesting ways that people entice or bring in additional benefits to help with retention. But most of it is still going to boil down to relationships and growth opportunities. When you feel like you're hitting the ceiling and there's no more investments, no more growth, you're not learning anything new, people leave. And it's good people that leave. People with growth mindset. When they're not challenged, they're going to leave. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. In addition to that, are you able to send this in an email, the slide?
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Marcus. And it's good to see you back on our webinars. Anyone else?
Yes, always.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for your support. All right. Well, if you think of other questions, feel free to email us. We're going to send a follow-up with the recording and these slides. And don't hesitate to check out the website too. Like I said, there's resources. There's a blog with clickable links to some of these statistics. I want to give a shout out to Smila Fernandez, who is my content writer and executive assistant extraordinaire. She's responsible for putting all this information together. She's fantastic. And thank you guys for your time.
Thank you as well.
Have a great day. Take care.